And on this Wednesday, April 15th, 2026 edition of Newsmakers, JD Vance says the Pope needs to be careful when talking about theology. The vice president spoke last night at a Turning Point USA event in Georgia, commenting on a recent social media post by Pope Leo that said anyone who is a disciple of Christ is never on the side of those who once wielded the sword and today drop bombs.
I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated France from the Nazis?
Meanwhile, Pope Leo spoke to journalists on a flight to Cameroon today as he continues his Africa visit. He made no mention of Vice President Vance's comments, but instead doubled down on a message of peace and unity, saying his visit this week to an Algerian mosque provided a good reminder.
Although we have different beliefs, we have different ways of worshiping, we have different ways of living, we can live together in peace. And so I think that to promote that kind of image is something which the world needs to hear today.
Meanwhile, in Cameroon today, the Pope didn't hold back in addressing 93-year-old President Paul Biya and government authorities in his arrival address at the presidential palace, saying in order for peace and justice to prevail, the chains of corruption which disfigure authority and strip it of its credibility must be broken. Hearts must be set free from an idolatrous thirst for profit. The president, who's been in power since 1982, sat passively as Leo read his speech in French. Cameroonian television halted its live feed for parts of Leo's speech, but it wasn't clear if technical glitches were to blame. The Trump administration is accusing the Biden administration's Justice Department of selectively prosecuting pro-life demonstrators. The report accused former AG Merrick Garland of being biased in his enforcement of the FACE Act by, quote, aggressively charging anti-abortion activists rather than abortion rights protesters. The report also says he worked with pro-abortion groups to track pro-life activists' First Amendment activity. A federal judge in Eugene, Oregon, has ruled in favor of Oregon Right to Life, finding the nonprofit is not bound to the state's Reproductive Health Equity Act under the First Amendment. Governor Tina Kotek blasted the decision, and Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield says the scope of the ruling is unclear until the written opinion is issued, but he believes the impact is limited to a religious exemption claim brought by one organization. A bill that would restrict mail-order abortion pills in Iowa is moving forward after a debate in the Iowa House. The bill would require a doctor's visit and informed consent before a patient is prescribed abortion pills. If the proposal is approved, patients would only be able to take the abortion pills in a healthcare setting. Republicans say they aim to regulate the abortion pill and prevent the sale of what they call black market abortion medications. The Redlands, California Unified School District will keep the King James Version of the Bible in school libraries. The district's board voted in favor of keeping the Bible on shelves at yesterday's meeting. It comes after district officials passed a policy that allows books to be removed if they're deemed inappropriate for students. Challenged books will be temporarily removed, then reviewed by a committee that grades them based on content and appropriateness for school-age children. The school board then makes the final decision, as it did in this case. Nearly 24 people spoke during the meeting, with none saying the Bible should be banned. And that's Newsmakers for this Wednesday, April 15th, 2026 edition. I'm Keith Black.